and this is the Nonprofit Corner podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. And welcome to the Nonprofit Corner podcast, and this is your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd, and I am so excited today. We have a great guest, and she's going to bring a lot of strategies and tips for you, and her name is M Chenault, and she's in LA right now, which is close to Las Vegas, which we were just talking about. Oh, we're in the same neighborhood right here. But Michelle, welcome to the show. First thing we want to know is sort of how did you get to where you are today? You deal with entrepreneurs. You have been in the whole what I call incubator type format where you help people start and things. Give us some background on that.
Absolutely. And Dr. Victoria, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to speak with you today. I actually fell into my world of consulting. Back in 2006, I had a guy friend. I gave him a card for his birthday. I signed this fancy letter M for my first name. And he said, wow, M Consulting. He said, I could see you being a consultant. And I said, really? Okay. And right out the gate, he said, can you write a proposal for me? I want to do some government contracting. He was in real estate. And I said, sure, I can take a stab at it. And from there, it's just been nonstop operations, technical writing, helping businesses get into compliance. And that's where I've been. And I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I sort of got while I was working on my doctorate, my actual main advisor told me I was a great technical writer. I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I was like, okay. So, but apparently there was a need for that because I did end up publishing several books that were how-to books versus fiction where I'm just telling a story. but apparently technical writing has a lot to do with if you can write a good how-to book. So, but also I was excited to read that, you help businesses really get going. I love the incubator concept of getting them. You were working with the small business community. In fact, I have a lot of relationships with the one that's here in Las Vegas, meeting with them tomorrow, in fact. But anyway, that whole concept of helping small businesses think through that beginning stages. What do you think some of the hardest steps for those beginners when they are first starting out?
What I find it's not having the confidence in being able to start and run a business or there being a demand or need for their business. And then thirdly is not knowing the resources that are available to them. There are a lot of free resources in every community. And oftentimes these new entrepreneurs say, okay, I got this idea. Let me ask everyone I know what they know, which they're usually not qualified to give that advice. And by the time they come through one of these organizations that I work with, they're so far gone that we got to bring them back.
I totally understand that because I help individuals and businesses who want to start a nonprofit or a foundation, and they start percolating all of these concepts and ideas. And then when I get, a hold of them or they come to me, I was like, no, that won't work. No, that's illegal. No, we can't do that. And it sort of deflates them. Because, they've been coming up with all of these strategies that if they had gone to a source that actually knows or has expertise in those essential first steps, just like marketing feasibility. And you mentioned, is it needed? Do people need it? That's marketing feasibility. With nonprofits, there's a lot of animal foundations out there, so do we need another one?
Exactly.
You might have a niche within that there is a gap or there is a larger need. So I don't even let them pick their name for their nonprofit before they do market feasibility, because that will be their branding. So I think we are doing a lot of the same thing in terms of getting them to think through that process of starting and getting going and what they need. Have you found that okay, I'll put this delicately. I call it founders syndrome. And yours might be, for business side, the entrepreneur, that they can't let go of some of their original ideas.
Oh, absolutely. They want to convince me that it's a good business concept. And I'm saying, you came to me because you need my input and my advice. And I'm saying this is not a good business concept. There was one nonprofit, they were going through an incubator, and they wanted to convince me that they had a product, a written product that educational facilities would want, and that they can sell it. And for this high, and I said, has it been proven? Have you had a proven audience? Have you beta tested this with anyone to show that this is going to be a desirable written product? And they said, no, but we just know it's going to be.
Oh, okay. Trust me, I know.
And I said, okay, so I promise you, you're not going to win this pitch contest.
Right, especially if they're trying to sell it to a school district or thing, because they have to validate its validity. Does it work? They want data.
Exactly.
And I ride on data. I'm always, what is the data? What is the data?
Exactly.
Let's show them the data. So in one of you have G Beta Social Impact. Tell me more about that.
Oh, okay. So G Beta is out of Houston, Texas, and it's actually called it's Generator, and G Beta is one of their incubator programs that they do annually. And it's a multitude of startups that qualify for this program, and they go through different steps within the program. And at the end, I come on and I'm one of the volunteers that listens to their pitch. Okay. And then I feedback on their pitch. And then I also always offer a 30-minute free consultation outside of that contest, so that we can go and further explore any of the points that I bring to their attention that they'd like to get more information on.
Absolutely, because I have a program, a social impact program, and it's for businesses, but it's from the marketing perspective, because I teach courses on cause marketing and how to align with nonprofits if you're a business, how to look at who your target audience and find the nonprofits that has a cause that is similar to that it could align with. And that's how you can really build your cause marketing, but also social impact. If businesses are, I'll say, giving away a lot of resources like infographics, ebooks, e-guides, checklists, all of those are considered educational resources. And you can actually convert those into an educational hub, which then could qualify you to be a nonprofit, which then qualifies you to get the Google ad grant, which is $10,000 per month in free ad credits. So it's a process, but I mean, you already have to have those educational pieces that you're sharing, or do webinars on a regular, but anywhere where you're educating community actually gives you a great foundation. And what you're doing is having social impact. So yeah, I've been reading through you've been doing a lot of stuff, a mastermind counselor, and because I was on the cusp, I'll say cusp, of creating a nonprofit mastermind. But then I shifted it to a membership platform that includes what I call a quasi mastermind concept, because it's a full community forum. And then once a month we get together to have a Q&A session. So that's like the mastermind part.
Right. Okay.
There's a whole lot of other elements to it. And I'm really excited about Philanthropreneur Foundation launching that. It's actually coming in January of 2024. We're in that. So with all of these things, I'm going to ask, with all of the things that you've been doing, which one has really captured your heart?
That's a hard one to answer, because when I started with the Women's Business Center of Houston in January of 2020, of course, the pandemic hit March 2020. And so for at least a year and a half, that was my baby, because I'm working with all of these women virtually. We were doing Zooms all the time. No one wanted to be on the phone. Everyone.
Where is it located in? I'm sorry, because I was in Houston for about 6 months. Where was it located?
Oh, the physical center is, oh gosh, I drive there all the time. I couldn't even begin to tell you. It's off of, oh, you caught me there. I can't even tell you where it is. It's like
I was way up north. I was by the 8 Beltway up north.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. It's like 20 minutes out of downtown, and that's not near the north, because I used to be in Humble, Texas, and then
I was right outside Humble. Yep, okay, that's where I was, up there.
Yes, now I'm in the Montrose part of Houston, where all the action is. Near downtown. But working during that time was really impactful for me, because I had all these women that were needing help so that they can qualify for the pandemic funding. They had started their businesses and just started. They didn't have the business formally set up. They weren't legal entities. They didn't have business banking accounts. They didn't have operating agreements. They weren't separating their money from personal and business. There was so much help that these women entrepreneurs needed. And that was very impactful for me. And I will forever be grateful to the Women's Business Center to have been a part of that. Most recently, I'm working with an organization out of Orlando, Florida, the Center for Micro-Entrepreneurial Training. Okay. And they do 6 cohorts a year for 5 days virtually. And that's very impactful, because I'm coming across, we are reaching all across the US now. First, they were focusing on Florida. Now we're having clients in Illinois, in Georgia, Texas, New York, California, and we're meeting. And it's so exciting, because I get to talk to these individuals that just had no clue. I talk about business planning, business plans, and the implementation of those plans. And then we make them do a 1-page business plan. Yes. And everyone says, this is great. Now, as a result of this, I get to create a baby next year, which is going to be focusing solely on nonprofits. With the same model, because right now we're servicing for-profit and nonprofit in the same cohort, which we're realizing that nonprofit cohort
needs to be separate. Yeah.
So next year I get to have my baby birthed from what we call CMET, the Center for Micro-Entrepreneurial Training, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I've been really just focused on that nonprofit side for, well, almost forever, but that's how the whole term philanthropreneur came up, because I was teaching nonprofit management at UNLV, and I kept hearing myself say, even though you're in philanthropy, you have to think like an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And the two just intersect so much. And I told them to throw the term nonprofit out the window. You are a for-purpose business. And yes, you need to create revenue streams. And yes, you need systems, operations, and management, and all of those things. And that is my segue into, we're going to be talking about operations, policies, and procedures today. But before we get into that, we're going to take a real quick break, and we'll be right back. The Philanthropreneur Foundation provides concierge services for nonprofit startups and websites. Google Ad Grant training, second Wednesday of every month. TPF Network on YouTube, find training and other great resources, plus the Nonprofit Corner podcast. And don't miss the membership program, Lighting the Way to Success, a dynamic community for personal and organizational growth. And welcome back to the Nonprofit Corner podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd, and my special guest, Michelle Chenault. If you've been listening, you know she is full of information. She has worked and helped many individuals go through that process. But right now, and this is really a gap that I see a lot, because often, you know, we come in after they've tried to put together things too much. A lot of times I'm sort of coming in when they've been trying to write their bylaws, and I'm finding that they really try to put too much into their bylaws. Bylaws are for governance, whereas policies and procedures should be separate documents. That you shouldn't have to have a full board vote just to change something in policy and procedures. It should be able to be fluid, a work in progress. Well, that's my belief. But I'm going to have and let you talk about operations and policies and procedures. So where do you want to start with that? Because that's a big topic.
It really is. And I have a partner that I work with. She does solely works with nonprofits. And so I do a hybrid nonprofits and for-profits. So whenever she takes on a new nonprofit client, we partner together and I provide all of a full organization audit. My first step is to make sure that the organization is in compliance.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how a lot of organizations don't know they have to do that annual filing.
The 990, yeah. Or just even the state list of officers. Absolutely. They call it different things in every state, but you have to file that annually. And yeah, there's usually a fee attached. For example, in Nevada, it's called your annual list of officers. Yes. But if you don't file that, your corporation is revoked.
Exactly. So that's my first and foremost, whenever I engage a new client, is to make sure they're in compliance. Secondly, I start looking at their operations. Do you have policies and procedures? Do you have a manual for everyone who's working within this organization, be it paid employees, independent contractors, consultants, or volunteers, to make sure that if you decided to take a leave of absence or vacation, this organization can still manage itself. And
I'm so glad you put it in that perspective, because yes, they too often think about making it a management tool to tell those folks what to do, right, versus a tool to help run the organizations if they're gone.
Absolutely. It's to benefit everyone involved, everyone. And I always make it mandatory that I interview from each department when creating those policies, so everyone has input. It's never an isolated situation where it's just me and the consultant or me and the executive director. I work with the individuals, boots on the ground, to make sure I know what they do, and that's put into the policy.
Absolutely.
And then record keeping. What is the record keeping? What is of course, cloud storage is most important. I make sure there's cloud storage. I make sure that they also have some sort of digital reporting platform, that it's not just Excel or written document.
My language. No, because I help so many individuals and start nonprofits. And as soon as I get documentation, I send it to it. I say, put this in a safe place, have a hard copy and a digital copy, and keep it so you can find it.
Yes.
2 or 3 years later, do you have a copy of our determined? I'm like, where are you getting? I don't know where it went.
And what I'm finding is, which is surprising, that in this day and age, people are still not either tech savvy or they don't embrace tech. And so what I tell my clients, because I do help them with the filing for the 501c3 status, tell them every time, if you don't have a good printer at home, do not take a picture with your phone. Go to your local store where they have a printer and have that puppy scanned and uploaded to the cloud. So you always have a clean version, because when you go to get that grant, or go woo that donor, they don't want this.
I've had to walk people, because a couple of clients kept wanting to send me pictures where I could see it was on their kitchen counter and they were taking a picture. I said, no, you need to scan it. Well, I don't have a scanner. Then you need to either invest in one or go
about $50.
If that. No. Plus, there's so many groups out there that are actually giving away equipment to nonprofits.
Right. Very true. Very true. Yeah.
But I have to say, I had to lay the rule down. I do not accept JPEGs or pictures of documents. It must be a scanned PDF or the original. Exactly. Oh no, it's for your benefit, not mine.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So making sure they're in compliance. I do the exact same thing, because even every state has different rules. Like in Nevada, we have what is called a statement of solicitation. It's actually a Nevada statute AB 60. I can quote it, but that states, of course, IRS has their requirements for their bylaws and the dissolution and all the clauses that they require, that most states don't require that exact wordage. And so a lot of times you can file and get your corporate paperwork, which is totally out of compliance with IRS.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. It's very important to make sure you consult a professional prior to setting up a nonprofit.
That's us.
Yes, because if you set it up incorrectly, then you're going to spend a lot of money for nothing. And even when it comes down to filing the federal employer identification number, ticking the right boxes when you do that is extremely important as well. Because
Absolutely.
if you go to file for that 501c3 determination with the IRS and you have the wrong EIN status, you're going to get rejected. And you're going to have to go through that whole process of refiling for the EIN and canceling the wrong one.
Right. And a lot of times because they don't read, but I take that. I do a whole done for you formula. I was like, I don't want you touching anything. It's too hard to clean up messes or clean up it could be a tiny mistake, but it's so hard to clean up a tiny mistake versus doing it right the first time.
Exactly, especially when we're dealing with the IRS.
I know. I have my number here. I'm supposed to be calling today to check on a file, but anyway, that's a whole nother story there. But yes, it's so important in terms of the compliance, which leads into some of the processes, because like I was mentioning, in Nevada, we have what is called the AB60, which is for a statement of solicitation. And it states that on every piece of material, collateral, solicitation, even your website, you have to state that you are a Nevada nonprofit corporation with IRS tax code 501c3, which makes donations tax deductible, blah, 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 blah. And post your EIN number. They're making it very official. And that's supposed to be on everything. Wow. So most people don't know about that, because I help them also create their website and the content. Okay. And so I said, you want your website compliant too, because then if you then go for that Google ad grant, they're going to look for all of that other stuff. So all of it is overlapping, which I think also has to do with policies and procedures.
Oh, absolutely. Because then you also want to identify who's responsible for compliance within your organization as well. And here's the checklist.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay. Little bit of talking about boards and relationship with executive director. I know because the board I call them the sky view. They sort of look down on everything, but they should understand everything that's happening. Even though the executive director has that hands-on day-to-day, that grassroots interaction. And they probably will be those that are writing I hope they're the ones guiding the process for policies and procedures. Too often I see where boards who are really sort of removed from the day-to-day process try to write policies and procedures.
I have been fortunate that has not been my case. They engage with me, and like I said, I work with all of the individuals that are actually working with their what we call it client facing. So I work with them and what their day-to-day activities are when creating the policy, and then I do my own research for whatever their state and local regulations are for their nonprofit area, whether it's transitional housing, yeah, or youth services, whatever. And so I put that into the draft, and then I send it to the ED to then take it to the board for them to do another vetting, and when possible to have legal review as well.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Because one of my previous guests, we were talking about that it's the responsibility of the board to approve the annual budget. But they actually don't have anything to do with the budget on a day-to-day basis. So why should they be the ones approving it? Once again, who's really involved in using or needing the policies and procedures versus who do you think just because they have a title is supposed to be managing them or have what I call the final say. And I love your format that you do it as a forum, or a total, all the stakeholders that will be impacted by these policies and procedures have input, have stake in the development of them, and on the back end side will understand why they
Yes.
are created that way. And that's what causes a lot of confusion, when they don't understand why a policy is in place.
Exactly. Or it's so far removed from what they do on a day-to-day basis that they just disregard it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. You're talking my language. Yes, yes. Okay. So what do you think some of the, I know this is a hard question, some of the key points that you want to bring out about policies and procedures? You already mentioned compliance. So what about, you listed processes and efficiency. What about those two?
Yeah, goodness. So processes is how do you launch a new program? How do you engage your clients, your population, your target population? How do you hire, train, or prepare employees, contractors, or volunteers? What is your budget and how is that budget spent? What departments are responsible for their own budget? Goodness.
Yeah.
What is how many people touch a process? You know,
and most of yours seem to be more mid-sized to larger, not, I wouldn't say big nonprofits, but mid-sized that have the capacity to hire staff and have people on board. So if,
yeah, and actually, like I said, I also help them start from the ground up in getting that 501c3 status. And once we get there, that's even easier for us to put policies in place because
Yeah.
we see it for future hiring, future
Yeah.
volunteering. So yeah, it's great when there's an existing staff to get it going, but it's even better when there's no one there yet. And we can
see, most small organizations that literally are starting with that founder and maybe just a couple support people that help them, they sort of overlook or take or don't think it's necessary to think about that element at this point. Well, we only have, it's just the three of us, or it's, this is the best time to do it, isn't it?
Yes, and that's when I tell them, first and foremost, do you have your program plan written? Because once you write your program plan, meaning what are the services you provide, who is your audience, and what type of funding do you plan on attaining? Once you write that program plan, from there you could already see, oh, I need this policy, I need this policy, I need this policy. But oftentimes someone will come to me, an organization will come to me and want their grants written, like, hey, I was told you write grants. We need a grant. Okay, great. Where's your program plan? Oh, we don't have one.
Where's your case statement? Where's your
exactly? Oh, we don't know what that is.
Yeah,
oh.
I do a grant training also called Getting Your House in Order. Before you even look for the grant, you got to get your house in order first.
Absolutely.
And that's
back to
sounds
the
like
digital files.
What you're doing.
Yes, having those corporate files, having them digitally, having all of your company data in one location. Yes, everything. And back to the compliance. Have you been filing your annual tax reports? So
And a lot of
it all comes hand in hand.
Hand in hand, absolutely, because a lot of times when they go looking for those grant writers, I've been on that other end also, and I start asking these questions, do you have your case statement? We're not there to write your organizational information or all of that, otherwise you're going to be paying those grant writers a humongous amount of money, because all of that is needed before the grant is even researched.
Yes.
And most organizations can't afford to have that. So you really need to do that for two reasons. First, understand who you are. It's an internal strategy or process. I'll use the word process, that you really get to dive deep into understanding who you are. And like you said, who's your target audience? Because in a nonprofit, technically you have two. You have who you serve and who you want to support you.
Exactly.
And the message is totally different. You use who you serve, the impact you have with them, to attract who you want to support you. They still go hand in hand, but the message is totally different. I deal a lot in the marketing side. That's why I say the Google ad grants and all of that, marketing, lead magnets, blah, blah, blah. So it's about the content, the narrative, the message that you're giving.
Correct.
all of the processes and procedures are a part of your systems, operations, and management.
Yes.
Then on the external side is all of that marketing, your impact, and how you're attracting. So you're developing that internal stuff. I used to a whole lot, but I really have fun on the external stuff.
Yeah, and I stay far away from the external.
That's where I'm having fun right now. To me, it's very creative, because with each organization, we have to explore, what is your narrative? What, how do you want to tell that story of, and how do you want to track? And that's how the whole super donor challenge and masterclass came about. It's about redefining or renaming that donor continuum, which starts with first time donor, sustainable, major, based on how much they give versus based on how much they're engaged. And so you want a super donor, like a super fan.
Yes.
That will help tell your story and bring all that back in. Okay. So we talked about processes, and the final one you have here is efficiency. I don't know if you overlapped into that, but what about efficiency?
I would say it overlaps. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So basically, to sum up what you've said, I always like to summarize to make sure I understand. Absolutely. That operations, policies, and procedures, you should start really thinking about them from day one. From the very first day that the vision came into your mind, because that also is the starting point of when you're developing your program outline, your program plan. And concurrent to that, you should have a second spreadsheet or a file of here's your program and what do you need and how will you manage it. Is that sort of?
Absolutely. And do it in the most efficient way as possible.
I'm into efficiency. So, because when they come to me wanting to start, I could tell them, well, concurrent to filing all this paperwork, you should be thinking about your website, because that's going to be your main marketing tool. What is your programming? And, that should be worked on concurrent to that, because they always say, well, what do we do after that? No. It's all done concurrently. It's not step one, step two, step three. It's a work in progress, continuous improvement that will continuously be working in a cycle, going around and around. And you're never really finished with it. It's just, okay, we got it to the point where it's usable. now let's keep, because with growth, everything is going to need to expand or grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I think I got it. Okay, so do you have any final last tips to the nonprofit listeners here? Maybe one step that they can start today.
Yes. Either contract with you or myself, or go to your local small business development center or women's business center to get an audit done on your nonprofit.
Absolutely.
And it takes 30 minutes to really know what your nonprofit needs.
Yes. You can do it internally, because I'm sure you have that. I know I have a Google website assessment where we audit your website. Once again, I work on the external, the marketing side. So all of these are, and it's quick. It's like 20 questions that you can get an overview of where you stand and at least know where to start improving some of your policies, procedures, and systems.
Absolutely. Because without it, the nonprofit is just not sustainable. I've worked with a couple of nonprofits in the last 2 years where they almost lost their major funding because they didn't have policies and procedures in place, and they were losing staff on a regular basis because they had
no guidance. They didn't know what to do.
No direction.
Okay, so you mentioned assessment, and you're going to give a free, is it you that's giving the 30-minute assessment?
Yes.
Okay. You're getting it from the horse's mouth, people. So I'm going to put the website or the link so that you can contact Michelle to get the 30-minute organizational assessment, and you'll be booking an actual appointment with an expert.
Yay!
This is going to be so great. So that will be how they can actually contact you. I'll make sure I put your website, your business website on there. Any last words?
No, just thank you all for your willing to give back of time in a nonprofit, and thank you for your services.
And I say the same thing. I know nonprofits give a lot to the community, but we often need to ask, what do they need? And that's what the Philanthropreneur Foundation is here. We're a nonprofit for nonprofits to help build nonprofit capacity through education, awareness, and resources. And this has been another edition of the Nonprofit Corner podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd, and we will see you next time.